Welcome to Human Powered, the podcast about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. I'm Trenton Moss, and today I have Mike Craddock, co-founder and CEO of the social creative agency NewGen. Mike, hello.
Glad to be here, mate.
Well, thank you so much for joining. Mike, you've been running the business for 10 years, and you lead a team of 100 people here in the UK and also in New York and Paris. What I think is really interesting about you is that you used to be a professional gamer and YouTuber. Tell me, how do you move from doing that into running a 100-person agency?
It was a journey. So, yeah, I just thought I was really good at Call of Duty in a genuine nutshell. And much to my probably parents' frown, I decided I would drop out of college, say I'm going to be a full-time YouTuber, even though I had no subscribers at the time, and just started making a lot of content on YouTube. And then, over 4 or 5 years, managed to build up an audience of about 500,000 people. But what I really started to enjoy was like doing brand deals and sponsorships. As a YouTuber and a content creator, we made a gaming esports organization, which we started playing professionally. I would then seek sponsorships. So we were sponsored by Xbox at one point, Mad Cats, Elgato. I did that for 3 or 4 years, but that is how we ended up making the business, because we started originally as a talent management agency. So I'd built up a friendship circle of YouTubers. I just outreach to them saying, can we effectively manage you and help start commission your deals? And that literally kickstarted the business, because we had 10, 20 million followers worth of YouTubers that we could then go and sell for sponsorships. We didn't actually make it into a creative agency till maybe 3 years later, but that was literally how we started the business. I took my YouTube experience and deployed it into my friends.
I'm wondering, if you could go back in time 10 years or so, what advice would you give your younger self starting out?
I would have gone through multiple stages. We didn't hire senior at all at the start. So for the first 2 or 3 years, when we started to scale the business, we hired very junior roles and very executional style roles. And it effectively made me, even when we were a 20-person agency, the seller, the voice of the company, still delivering campaigns, still doing legal, because the second most senior person was a manager level. And that wasn't sustainable. But I think the genuine biggest advice I would have given myself is treat reputation more seriously. We didn't. And we were working with really high profile brands and creators. And we were really fortunate that we worked with really high profile companies really early on. But actually, we weren't ready for that. Understand the logistics, how to run that type of account, the process. So it made us churn a lot of accounts. But we were actually winning a lot of new business, but we were also churning clients. The issue then comes, those clients go to different clients and the industry is quite small. So actually what we didn't realize was we were starting to see some reputational damage, and we didn't really take it as seriously as I think we should have. And if I could go back, I would have told myself to slow down. And now we have a bit of a mantra: slow down to speed up. Slow down, take those clients a lot more seriously, slow, sustainable growth. And actually we would have been in most likely a better position now if we slowed down, took those clients on a journey instead of just trying to acquire new clients and trying to grow. So that would probably be the biggest thing I would change going backwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Reputation's everything. And every time that reputation gets a little bit damaged, it has a big long-term effect on your business, as I think you realized. So you went from obviously starting up to then running a team of 20 with very little experience and being at a very young age. How did you know how to get the most out of the team back then? And what sort of things were you doing to make that team as high performing as possible?
Yeah, I think in the early days, I was just involved in everything. And I am a bit of a perfectionist, and to some extent, not as much anymore, like micromanaging. So every Sunday, I would literally draft a message to all the campaigns team we had, going through every campaign, what's needed. First thing on a Monday, we would do a 10-minute stand-up per client where I would go for every single aspect. And then I would effectively do twice a week training of, this is how to reverse engineer the numbers, CPM-based influence marketing was all CPM. So this is what CPM we need. I'm really working very closely with that influencer team, which was the biggest team at that point, in terms of how we deliver campaigns, and kind of just giving them a blueprint of what I did. And I think that has set the expectations. And I'm very proud of some of our early starters. They've gone on and they're global influencer directors at some of the biggest brands in the world now, which is very proud to see how they've developed. And the high performance it was pre-COVID, so it's 5 days in the office, regular syncs with the team, hand-ups on every single client and account, regular check-ins. We're very numbers and performance-driven as well. So a lot of it was fundamentally, we're going to hit this CPM. Everyone needs to understand maths and the numbers and reverse engineering how many creators we need to be able to optimize that. So I think it was just setting the standard and the example at the top, which is what we want to do very early on.
Nowadays, the business is obviously at a much larger scale. Tell me a bit about what high performing means today.
We're still a very commercial and numbers driven business, but we are very hyper targeted to, we have a bigger picture, but this is your department and this is your responsibility. So let's say you're within finance, or you're in the finance team. We don't need you to be high performing across the entire business, but you need to keep control of your forecast within 5% of the budget, very line itemized. So they're in control of that. All the approval layers flow through them. We ensure they're working really closely with the accounts team in terms of project health checks or client health checks. So they sync every single month the profitability of the account, how many hours we're reviewing to make sure they're optimized. So it's really split per department in terms of what we're actually looking for, whereas influence team is about delivery, satisfaction of creators. For me, though, like a high performing is proactiveness. I really value someone being proactive in the business, whether it's coming up with new ideas, coming up with new concepts, just being a bit out there. We also try and push a lot of that responsibility down into the teams as well. So for us, a big focus is, right, high performing. If you have a passion point, we'll maybe cordon off 10, 20% of your time, so you can actually really focus on your passion points as well. So yeah, for me, high performing though comes down to like someone who's willing to learn, someone who's willing to be proactive, someone who's willing to be creative, push the business out there fundamentally. And a lot of it is still backed up by commercials and numbers in our business as well, whether that is growing accounts, delivering accounts, internationalizing the business, profitability, and a lot of it still comes back to that.
What do you proactively do in order to encourage a culture that engenders all of those things you just described?
I think the biggest thing is just setting the example at the top. And it's something that we try and ensure all leadership are encapsulating in their area. So Katie, who's our ECD, really pushes the boat out in terms of setting the standards at the top in terms of what we see as best in class creativity. And that might be her leading the work with Pepsi. And PepsiCo's a big client of ours in the UK, of new creative ideas, really pushing the boat out in terms of what we're doing, Ring Popper, Corner Shop. And that creative team sees that and is like, we want to emulate this. What else can we do for the rest of our clients? And what learnings have we taken for Pepsi? And maybe that's a download of information. But we also just implemented like some really small things as well of creativity. We this year implemented, we called it the Fuck It Bucket, which is literally a pot of money. So we put $5,000 a month aside and said, if you have any ideas, and this can come from anyone in the business, any ideas for our current clients or new clients, you have a pot of money and we can do whatever we want with it. So if I use an example of what we are doing, there's a new very large company moving to Manchester in the very near future. We want to win them as a client. So we're going to take over the out of home opposite their office, just very subtle. Welcome to Manchester, signed off with NewGen. They'll see it as soon as they come. It's very subtle. Well, it's not even subtle, actually. It's right in their face. But it's literally, we've got a pot of money. It's a bit of an out of home. It's a bit of a marketing tool, PR tool. But it's also a new business acquisition. And that idea came from a member of the team. So there's also really small aspects where the example's set at the top. We make sure the accountability is pushed to the teams, but also literally putting money aside where people can go, if you have an idea, do whatever you want with it. We do a lot in the gaming world, naturally. And we challenged our team to effectively go, right, we feel we're falling behind in the streaming world. And we really felt that, but streaming was moving so quickly. How do we make sure NewGen in 3 years is ahead of the curve? And where do we see streaming actually becoming? So we set this challenge out to the team, and it was our senior influencer manager, I believe, who came up with an idea of, I think we can integrate technology into creator streams and we can control what's happening on their streams. We weren't really sure if it was viable. We checked it with our product owner. We managed to make that work, and we figured out that could actually happen. So then we made a group of people in the business. Some were tech background, some were just influencer background, some were creative background. We effectively made them into a working team. So they're now a team of 6, and they own this project, and they've owned it for 2 or 3 years. I effectively just check in once every 2 weeks. So the accountability is sat the most senior person is probably a senior influencer manager, who's running this product now. They're responsible for the roadmap. They're responsible for AWS partnerships. They're responsible also for selling it as well. So we take them to conventions and they actually sell the product and demo the product. But we've pushed that responsibility down into the teams, and now they're responsible for it from literally start to finish. And that's coming up with new roadmap ideas, coming up with new initiatives. And it's now it's a multi-million-pound like piece of tech that we are using actively for our clients, and now we are best in class. But that was effectively a business challenge that we knew we had. And instead of us as a leadership, which I think a lot of companies would just sit in a room and try and resolve, we challenged the team who do it day in, day out and said, come back with a proposition. And that's just one of, probably 6 pieces of tech now that they've come up with and started to build out. So yeah, that's another example of how we've tried to push responsibility down to the team members who understand it better, but then make them accountable so they really feel like they're on that journey and make it successful as well.
So it sounds like as a leadership, you're not so arrogant to think that, well, we're the leaders, we've got all the answers. It's more, well, my team are on the coal face. They're the ones who are going to have the best solutions.
Yeah, they know it better than us. I think we'd be naive if we don't leverage them as much as possible. Us growing as a business, I'm trying to get less involved in day-to-day to now focus on growth and work on these projects that will future-proof us as a business. NewGen is all about the new generation. We need to come up with new ways of marketing or new areas of marketing to challenge our clients, or we are not true to our name fundamentally. So with certain initiatives, whether it's Spotify, Meta, new monetization methods, we push that to the team. And then some of the ideas, let's trial it, a bit of a trial and error.
There's so much that you're doing to make sure that the business stays true to its proposition of thinking and acting differently. Tell me, what do you do to continuously remind people that they need to do that?
Yeah, I think it's nearly impossible to get everyone always thinking that. And I wanted to for a long time, like have every single person in the business always thinking of more. But I've now quickly started to realize like there are some people who are just wired a bit differently. And there are some people who just want to crack on and do the work. And that is totally, totally fine. I think it's important to identify those people in the business who will push the boat out. They will bring some of the people on that journey and then give them a bit more autonomy, accountability, and also tell them like, we want you to push this direction with your team or you yourself. We know who those type of people are in our business, but we also do direct calls in Slack. So it could be, right, we're wanting to do NewGen Academy, which is something that we're looking at the minute. Direct call, this is something that we want to build out. Who wants to be part of it? There were 6 or 7 people said, I'm really keen. It's like, right, this is now your baby. You're going to be responsible for this project then. Let's go through it, go through all the challenges. They've worked on it for a couple of months behind the scenes, but now it's their responsibility. So we are always encouraging it via Slack call outs. We do newsletters internally and externally every month where we're talking about whether it's new things coming to market or new things that NewGen are fundamentally doing as well. As I mentioned, we push that responsibility down. So ensuring like the brainstorms, new initiatives are developed by the teams from the get-go. If they're invested into it, they're going to bring it to life a lot more. But then also, even with a client, we ensure all our account leads are syncing every 2 weeks. Whoever's running Pepsi or Samsung, etc., they'll meet every 2 weeks and they will also say, what have you done differently for your client in the past few weeks? And they will maybe share some insights or share some knowledge, but that knowledge can also then be deployed for their client. So it could be, we've been doing this for Reddit. It's a new platform, really exciting. It's like, actually, what did you actually do there? We want to share that knowledge. If it's relevant, we want to then take that to our clients as well. So we ensure there's really like regularly account knowledge sharing as well, just so we can ensure there isn't just one client who's getting all that creativity and it's shared across the business. But I think it also just needs to be a regular, constant chat in the business, whether that's company meetings, newsletters, Slack, creativity, Slack channels, where you're pushing that as well.
How do you get the balance right here between encouraging people to think and act differently and trying to get new initiatives going versus the pressures and the intensity of day-to-day client delivery?
Definitely a challenge that we've had from our teams, right? It's especially if as leadership, you're like, oh, we've got a great idea. We want to push Discord. We think this is huge. And they're like, hang on, we've got enough going on. And that happens all the time. I get that fully. Again, I think that for us is who is responsible. Accountability can also be a vacuum if it's just not really clear from the get-go. And we've experienced that where it's like, hey, everyone's responsible. And then no one's really responsible. Because it's like, oh, I thought this person was doing it. So we do try and make it really clear if there are new initiatives or new products, whom is actually responsible and accountable for fundamentally bringing that to life. And also That's why the client health checks that we do are really important, because we also understand, right, actually, this is not going great for this client. We just need to get the basics right. We're not going to push the boat out. Like, let's just focus on the beautiful basics. And then in 3 months, we'll assess. But also, yeah, every 3 months, we do really have a bit of an internal informal policy where you have to take new initiatives to the clients. And that could be social generative AI, which is a huge part of what's going on at the moment. And that even if the clients maybe aren't in a great headspace, we'll probably take that initiative for them. It's like, this is happening. How do you feel about AI? Do you want us to address this for next year? Because everyone is speaking about it. So every 3 months, we do have a bit of an informal, like, you have to be taking new aspects to clients and just sense checking it regardless. But accountability is set fundamentally with our chief client officer. He runs BDs and the ADs, and they're responsible for client growth, but also future-proofing those clients, whilst the remaining members of the team are there to ensure that client is happy on a day-to-day basis. But we ensure there is good 10-20% capacity free on those senior individuals to be able to think and take proactive ideas to clients.
Mike, tell me a bit about the values that the business have. Do you want to share what they are and explain the background behind them?
Yeah, so we have never stand still, which is kind of everything that we've been speaking about here. Excellence over ego, and got your back. So there are 3 values in the business. We workshopped those with the company as well. So those were not the values when we first started the company. But as the business has gone through different stages, even as founders, we're very different to what we were 10 years ago as well. And so we workshopped the values with the company itself and with team members. We had focus groups. So the values were mainly set by probably about 8 people at the start, HR team, people team, leadership team. But then we sense checked everything with focus groups in the company and then said, where are we hitting the mark? And where are we not? Let's be self-aware about it. Where have we still got things that we need to work on? Values are where we want to be fundamentally. I would hope they're relatively self-explanatory, but never stand still is the DNA that literally needs to run for our business. We cannot stand still. The market moves quickly. NewGen needs to move quickly. Otherwise, we'll lose our creators and we'll lose our clients. Got your back is fundamentally we're a team. If one person wins, we all win. If one person loses, we all lose. Really trying to avoid a blame culture in our company. I think a lot of agencies and a lot of businesses just have it where something goes wrong and someone just points the finger at someone else and goes, well, it's their fault or they didn't do this. Really trying to embrace a bit more of a team culture where we all win and lose together. And excellence over ego is, the biggest question we always need to ask ourselves is just what's the best for the client? That's all that really matters, not just what's the best for us or what's the best process or what it may be. Ultimately, we're a service-based business. And historically, I think people's egos have got in the way of progress in the business for us internally and for clients. And it's something that we really wanted to just remove. The most simple thing that we've put in place is we now have Slack emojis that have those values on them. So if someone does something or gets a shout out internally, there are literally Slack emojis people can react to about excellence over ego or never stand still. So if someone's ran a new AI initiative and want to showcase the company, that's the definition of never stand still. People can react instantly. It took no time. It took the design team probably an hour or 2 to whip them up. Very subtle, but it just encourages that conversation internally and just keeps reminding people what they are. Because I think if you're not talking about them, values are forgotten very quickly.
Tell me, what else are you doing to drive a culture of got your back and excellence over ego? And what action do you need to take when you see those values not being lived to?
Yeah, a very simple mechanic that we implemented was GG NewGen, which GG is a gaming term for good game, effectively. So we're still trying to stay true to some of our gaming heritage. And it is a Slack where every single person in the company is involved in. And we have effectively a tool where you can praise people for doing good work. And so you can submit I want to shout out these 6 people for doing work on this project, and this was the results. So it's all tied into who did it, what did they do, and what were the results of that. And then that will be shared into Slack. Everyone will get a notification. And then once that happens, there is effectively, just a huge barrage of messages, celebrating those people, whether it's emojis, whether it's just genuinely just words of encouragement. So that is a very simple Slack mechanic that we did to really celebrate creativity. But yeah, got your back because it's shouting out team members. Excellence over ego because you're celebrating them instead of yourself. Fundamentally, you can't give a shout out to yourself. But then even with all of those submissions, we take all of those submissions every month. And then we run effectively a little competition. So in our company meeting once a month, whoever has the most amount of GGs or who has been celebrated the most for certain aspects will have a leaderboard. Third place might get a Deliveroo voucher. Second place might get lunch for the entire team. First place might get a holiday. So it's a way that we can celebrate everyone, but there is also a reward for doing good shit, effectively. Again, a very simple tool, but actually it really encourages all of those values and just celebrates people instead of just monetary reward or a bonus, like they're being recognized by their peers, which actually for most people is more important.
Recognition for the effort you put in and going above and beyond is the most motivating thing. One thing you talked about at the start was how in the early days you hired a very, very junior team. And more recently, you've gone the opposite way and made a number of very senior hires in a short space of time. Tell me a bit more about how come you've done that and how do you bring everyone in and align your leadership team with so many new people?
So yeah, in the past 4 months, we've now hired a US MD, a Europe MD, a France lead, a production director, and a creative director. So 5 pretty senior hires. There are a few reasons I think we've done that. In my opinion, the business is getting close to the maximum size and our ability with our current team setup and the founder setup. I think we are close to capacity. We are now winning bigger clients, which expect different style of work. And I think that requires different levels of experience to take us to the next level. If we're going to work with people like Pepsi and Samsung, to take them to the next level requires a different approach entirely and something that we don't have the experience on. So I need to bring in that experience. That's fundamentally my job, is to get the people in the right places. We had an MD that didn't work out last year. So I've tried to take a lot of learnings of why that didn't work out and actually apply it for this year. So the differences was this year was we told people 6 months in advance that we were hiring these roles and brought the leadership on that journey, just saying, hey, in September, we are hiring these roles really early on. So no one was surprised. All the leadership met those individuals before they even started the business. So we brought them into the office for strategy days, review days, way before even joining. So everyone knew who they were already. We told the entire company who these people were, maybe 2 months before they actually joined the business at a summer party. So again, everyone in the company knew these people were joining. It wasn't a surprise. Everyone knew the direction of the roles we were hiring and when. And I think what was really important with these roles is we made sure their skill set was complementary, not a duplication. I think we made that mistake before. So we really identified, right, what do we really want in these MD roles, and two are very different needs. US is a very different need for Europe right now. And ensure that person was right. When they join, the leadership isn't just seeing it as, oh, it's another person. It's actually, they're going to add value here, here, here. And that has 100% happened. Expectations were really clear at the start. Everyone knew the timing. No one was surprised. And the biggest change I'm making as well is not just throwing these individuals in the deep end. It's just kind of treating it, I guess, like an extendable dog leash. Like slowly just letting it go further and further away until I'm like, right, I'm going to let him go now. I hope recall's good, but we're just going to run for it. And I'm really trying to learn from that because last year I stepped away really quickly. I just assumed, right, on paper, more experience than me, you'll be good to go. And no one knows your business better than you. So now it's phasing me stepping out of those roles.
What steps are you going to take with this new leadership team in place, and especially with the business now going global and with a US leader and a France leader? How do you make sure that your really unique culture remains as you expand globally? And how do you keep the team aligned around that common culture and indeed purpose?
What's important with these leadership roles is from the get-go, it's we're a global business, lean on each other. There are a lot of businesses that go, US, you just run how you want to run. Europe, you run how you want to run. You end up having loads of duplication, different tools. And whilst it can be good for a little bit, you can end up reining it back in a couple of years. And we've made that mistake. We kind of let the US run as a startup and really independently for a couple of years. And what happened was you start to sense this like animosity between the teams, which isn't really needed. So with the two new leaders, it was very clear from the start. It's like, we want to be a global business. That means lean on each other. One P&L, fundamentally, that's also really important. So whilst we have a global P&L, that's what our global team review, which they're part of. Yes, they have, individual targets, but when we're reviewing the forecast between us all, it's one P&L we're looking at. So we're all striving for the same goal. And we only show one P&L to the company as well. We don't break that down US and Europe. This is a global P&L. we're very honest with the company about where we are. One tool, one system, same structures in teams. So the structures are replicated in both areas. So if you move from UK to US, you wouldn't think, oh, what's going on here? It's entirely different. We now have really clear handovers when the UK go off, and then we're going to hand over to the US or vice versa. It's a really clear handover system and utilizing our tools, which we didn't have before. All the company meetings are ensured they're on US hours so everyone can join. Just really little things like ensuring that 2 till 5 p.m. period in the UK is really blocked out to work with the US team because that's our crossover time. And little 1% shifts like that have gone such a big way. And now when we respond to global new business, it's so much more smoother. It's so much more cleaner. There's no toxicity. Everyone has clear responsibility. It's so much better. But I do think purposes can be local. Something actually that we are pushing for is we have a global purpose and everyone knows that. However, the US market is further ahead than the UK and APAC in certain areas. And APAC's ahead of us in the West in a lot of areas as well. So we do need to change sometimes what the business purpose is to be optimized for those local areas. Social agency of records are supreme right now in the US, not so much in the UK. So we're really doubling down on that area in the US, whereas APAC, creators, live streaming, content is king. So with our Taiwan office, like that's really where we're leaning into. It's not really about social, it's about content creators, and we do have both strands to our company. So we want the same culture and we want the same global purpose, but we do optimize our focus areas depending on the continent, and that depends on the market as well.
Mike, it's been so interesting hearing you talk, because for such a creative company, you're so incredibly process driven and you have so many structures in place in order to enable that creativity. It's been 10 years. What an amazing story. What's next for NewGen and what's next for you?
I think NewGen is at a really pivotal part of our company now. We have matured and consolidated. So what we're really proud of now is our clients are in the happiest place they've been. And our clients stay. Our average tenure for a client is like 5 years right now. So we're in a really good place. When we get the clients, we think we do a really good job. The big focus for us as a business is really going deeper with clients and just making us a real extension of their team, where we're not really seen as an agency. We're just seen as a bit like an in-house agency for them. So for us, going deeper with clients is absolutely key. And so for me, though, like the reason we're getting leadership involved is so I can step out of that day-to-day and focus on bigger picture aspects, whether that is new markets, whether that is the business doing raises to fund M&A. If we want to continue 20% year-on-year growth, 25% year-on-year growth, when you start doing 20, 30 million a year, that growth starts to become a lot more difficult to sustain organically. So you need to start looking at different ways. So for us, it's like, what services do we need to add into the business to be a full 360 business? But then what markets do we need to go into? You know, what do we actually need to buy our way into versus organic? That's really what I want to be focusing on. But also I really want to be focusing on future-proofing the business. I think my role as CEO should be, where's the market going to be in 3 years and how does NewGen ensure we're there? That needs to be the number one target for me. I need to make sure the business is in a place that I can have a sensible balance and the business can run without me as well.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been so great hearing about the inner workings of the business and your journey to get to where you are today. Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
You've been listening to Human Powered, the podcast all about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. Thanks for tuning in.